Hey guys, we were recently hired to do a mudroom makeover. The project scope required us to build this 3-drawer unit underneath an existing mudroom kind of upper cubbies and cabinet with an oak bench. The oak bench was supported by a 1x2, 1x3 ledger on the back wall and 2 front oak legs. The plan basically was to build these 3 drawers, 2 large, 1 small, on full extension slides, drawer slides, and the drawer fronts would have this kind of really cool metal grill, mesh grill as a panel. Now, to lay out the project for the drawers, basically I used 1/4-inch Luan plywood strips to create story poles. I made 2 of them. And that became my working reference and blueprint throughout the entire project. The story poles had 3 different elevations recorded on them. So length, depth, and height. So one long strip, 9-10 feet long, was the width, the unit width. And then I used a shorter double-sided strip to record the depth and vertical, 1 on each side, the elevations. Now, using the story pole, that allows me to mark and record every detail on those upper cabinets and transfer them to my story pole. And then I can line up my stiles and rails with those verticals and things like that. Using the story pole also eliminates me having to refer back to a tape measure or a drawing, and that's going to eliminate or reduce graduated errors that result from tape measure and pencil marks. Now, once in the shop, I draw the whole drawer unit onto my story pole, incorporating and referencing all the upper trim details that I need or that are important. I start by drawing out my face frame to match my upper cabinets. Then, based on my face frames, I work backwards. I draw my 3/4 drawer unit where they lie, my drawers. I'll even draw the gap for the drawer gap going around between the reveal going around the face frame. Now for the project, some of the materials I used, the drawer units were the cabinets were 3/4 birch, the drawers were maple, poplar face frames, and stile and rail panels for the drawers. The woven metal grill was purchased at a place called outwaterplastics.com. It was pretty expensive. A 3x4 single crimp woven grill in antique brass cost me $900 to ship here to my shop. All right, let's talk about assembling the cabinets, the base, the boxes. So for years, I used to use a tongue and dado joint for my cabinets. And recently, I started using fastening with pocket holes where I could, pocket screws. And direct fastening where I could, and pocket screws where I couldn't. To do that, I use a Kreg Jig to make the pocket hole screws, and it's just faster. And I even used the pocket hole screws on my face frames. Now the drawer unit, it's paint grade, and the only part that's actually going to be seen is the far left side of it. The rest of it gets hidden by drawer fronts and face frames and stuff. So on that left side panel, I had to route a rabbet, a 1/4-inch rabbet or 1/2-inch rabbet on the back side because I needed to hide my 1/4-inch back panel so that that wouldn't show. You wouldn't see that on the end. So that's something to keep in mind, and you need to mark your story pole to show that as well. I built my drawer cabinets to the measurements drawn on my story pole, and then I move them. I move on to the drawers after that. So for ease of maneuvering and transport, I actually decided it's like a 9-foot long drawer unit. I made it in 2 parts. I did a larger in the middle part, and then another larger part in 2 different components. For the drawers, I basically source out my cabinet drawers. I always do. A local mill shop, actually that's all they do is drawers. They can make it faster, cheaper, and better than I can. The drawers are constructed of maple, 1/2-inch sides, front sides and rear. You can do 1/4-inch or 3/8 bottoms, which I do 3/8, and they come delivered to my house in boxes with 2 coats of lacquer ready to install. The lacquer I like because it's cheap to upcharge that, but they keep the drawers clean and they prevent them from absorbing odors. I also planned on mounting full extension slides on these drawers, and the slides require a 1/2-inch spacing. So I want to mention to you that measurement, that 1/2 inch on either side of the drawers, needs to make it to your story pole design. All right, let's talk about mounting the drawers and the drawer cabinets into the cabinets. Because the drawer units were so deep, I think they were 8 or 10, 12 inches deep, I was really concerned about weight. The side extension rails, slides that I bought were, rated for 100 pounds, but this family has kids, so I just doubled them up, and I just think it was smarter to do. To keep things consistent when doing those slide rails, I made spacer jigs, like a 2-inch jig and another 3-inch jig, and I would use a 2-inch jig on the bottom, put all my bottoms on, keep moving that jig, and then I would take the 3-inch jig on top of that slide and mount all those onto the sides of the cabinet as well. And that made sure that all of the slides were at the same height, the same place. You could swap drawers, they would fit. So I think that's smart, and using jigs and things to kind of keep you consistent, but also not having to measure. So the jigs were pre-cut. I just went to that size and went one and done. Perfect. All right, let's talk a little bit about making the face frame. So the face frame is the entire size, right? So once the drawers were installed into those cabinets, it was time to focus on that face frame. So, like I said, that face frame, it's long. It carries across the entire drawer unit, and as a result, it's going to be mounted on site after everything's installed. I used the story pole to get my lengths and vertical style and rail locations off of that, and then I purposely left the face frame a 1/2 inch long on the right-hand side with the wall side, and that gives me a little bit of a scribe if I needed it. The face frame was basically a 2-inch poplar or 2 1/4 poplar, and I constructed it with pocket screws and glue. I used to do dadoes and clamps. This was just way faster. I could get right into the sanding right away. The drawer cabinet units were temporarily clamped together, basically dry fit, so that I could test my face frame. And then I would clamp the face frame to the drawer units once I was done with the face frame. So everything got dry clamped. Now, making the 12-inch drawer fronts with those grills I talked about, that was a bit complicated, and it was going to be a new thing for me. It consisted basically of poplar, stile and rail frames for the drawer with metal grills inside instead of a panel for a front panel. The drawer front would then secure to the 12-inch-ish tall drawers that I had, the dovetail drawers. Now, for stiles and rails, I use the existing face frame to basically size out my lengths for the parts. Story pole will tell me, but I also the face frame's built, so I use it, and then I cut them and head over to the machine. I use a shaper, and it's a 2-part process for me. I use a cope and, it's a cope and rail or cope and style freeborn bit. It requires one setup for the detailed groove and another setup for the coped ends. And a long time ago when I got this bit, I learned that creating a sled with hold downs for each process is just safer and produces way more consistent results. So I have 2 different sleds I use. I cut my rail ends first, and then I cut my long groove ends second. And once complete, dry fit everything and put them right into the face frames. I shim them and check my reveals and everything. Just ensure that I have good reveals and good spacing on all sides. Once satisfied that the drawer frame, everything is close, I can trim them with the table saw later, I cut the metal grill with a grinder, and then I fit it inside, dry fit it inside that frame. When I was happy with that, glue it, clamp it, get it all ready to go. I cut the long, thin filler strips to actually fill in the space between the metal grill that was left in the tongue and groove, because it wasn't quite thick enough. So I had to cut these little filler strips in there, tap them down with glue, and shave them, carefully sand them, and get them to fit. Otherwise, the grill would have rattled or floated. I didn't want that to happen. When the drawer fronts were dry, I sanded the backs 80 grit-ish. I think it was 80 grit to get off the glue and any uneven joints. I then used wood filler on all the joint faces, the joints, just to ensure that there's no gap showing. And then I sand to about 120 to remove all the mill marks for the painter and make sure my joints are smooth. Once that's done, the drawers are then installed to the full extension slides. I then mount, I also painted the front edge of the drawers because with gray paint. The gray was the wall color, but it also helped hide the drawer front, which was a maple color, once the grill was attached. I forgot to mention that. It's a good point. The drawer fronts then get screwed to the maple drawer construction drawers. And because the drawer front is mostly metal grill, there's not a lot of structure there. So I had to make sure that I got the handle fasteners low enough through the maple drawer, and I also got other screws on that as well, all the way down and around, just for security, because when the kids are pulling on those drawers or whatever, I don't want them to pull that apart. Then I installed the drawer unit. So once, one of the requests from the client was that we properly secure the oak seat. Now over time, and probably because people would stand on that oak seat to get to the cubbies, to reach those upper cabinets, the oak seat had moved out from the wall, about 3/8 of an inch, and it was a visible stain line that you could tell that it slid out. We can kind of move it. So our plan was to remove the ledger, move the legs, and get that oak seat back in place, screw it up, because we couldn't see any fasteners underneath it, to the vertical cubbies. We're going to screw it up. It wasn't until we removed the rear ledger and the oak legs that we realized that the upper cabinet, the entire unit of the cabinet, was never secured to the wall. The entire unit just fell to the floor. Broke through little pin nails on the crown mold and everything, just came right down. This also explained why the oak seat slid out from the wall. It was never fastened. They slapped it on top of the ledger, put legs under it, and built on top of it, and they never fastened it to the wall. So it was a surprise for us, to say the least. So, all right, so what we had to do is we got some straps, we pulled it up, we got some milk crates underneath it, and with 2 hydraulic jacks, we were able to lift it back up inside the crown molding. The crown molding never came off. And we screwed it to the wall, to the studs, properly with 3-inch screws, re-nailed all the trim, and then had to make a new oak seat because when the thing fell, I was holding onto it and I broke the seat. So basically what I did is I ended up making an entirely new red oak seat for them out of 4 oak 1x6s, so 1x5s. And the boards were basically ripped, edged, and glued in my shop here. And once the glue was dry, I ran them through my mill shop's wide belt sander board. They charged me $50. It's a no-brainer. I don't have to own the machine, the space. And then I routed 2 outside edges with a thumbnail, a radius. I sanded everything down to about 220. I stained it and 2 coats polyurethane. Once the new oak seat was dry and ready to go, we did install it to the underside of that cubby unit. We used 8 to 10 trim screws screwed up, kept it tight to the wall, and then we moved on to installing our drawer unit. So, like I said, 2 parts. We put them in, joined them together. We had to remove the baseboard along the wall and cut the baseboard on the right side to get it to slide in. And once we got that done, the whole thing could just slide in underneath the unit where it needed to be. After cutting the base trim, we basically were able to slide everything in, so it was perfect. I secured them together. Oh, and then we put the face frame over it, right? So the face frame covered the entire thing, covered the seams of the boxes, glued them, nailed with brad nails, and basically got everything lined up, looking good, our reveals looking good. We had a little bit of a seam between the oak seat and the unit, so we shimmed that, and then we installed some cove molding. Kind of finish the look, but also hide that seam. Filled our nail holes, sanded our edges and our seams, the face frame to the left side of the cabinet, got that nice and sanded, filled all those seams again, filled in the baseboard where we needed to, and then it was ready for the painter. So it was actually, this is a really fun project, and I wanted to share with you the fact that the whole thing came crashing down on us. I was horrified. Client was really scared because they were thinking as the kids get older and they start jumping up to get things, that thing was going to come. Nothing would have stopped it from tilting this way in except for 3 nails, 4 nails, and some crown molding. So she was glad we were able to secure that to the wall and that nobody got hurt. Anyway, if you like this type of video, or you find it helpful, please let me know in the comments section. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell so you know when we post other videos. I'm Rob Robillard. We'll see you next time. Take care. Please consider supporting this channel. Like the video, leave a comment, but more importantly, subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Thank you.